If you are a VRChat avatar or a VRChat world developer like myself, today's video is for you as we have the SDK roadmap for May 2024 covering features that will be added for those of you who are developers of avatars or developers of worlds. And here is what they have in store for us as we get ready for the next part of the year. Now, keep in mind that it's for developers and avatar makers, so that is for you guys. There will be no new features added at least for a while, so let's take a look. If you guys want to see this roadmap for yourself, I'll link it in the description. So first off, we're gonna go every feature, and then we're gonna go in depth on each feature. Some of these we talked about for a few weeks ago. So the first one we're going to take a look at that is inspector improvements for World SDK components, and the description for this is the following: we're improving various components in World SDK, the VRC pickup, the VRC scene descriptor, and the VRC portal maker. So pickup is for the picking up option, like you pick up an object in VRChat and you drop it, something like that. VRC scene descriptor is the one where it's VRC world actually, where you drop the VRC world prefab to allow your character to be in there. It's like a first person controller for VR chat. VRC portal maker allows you to make the portals for your other worlds with the ID number and all that good stuff. So they're going to be adding that. Here's what is planned for that: removing obsolete properties, adding multi-editing, add more help button, question mark relevant documentation, allowing more add component, and remember whether drop downs are open or closed. And as we can see here, here is what is planned. So if we see the VRC pickup and all that good stuff, we can see that we have some new objects and stuff like that. Some new ones, the descriptor, and a new portal maker. So as you can see, they have removed obsolete options for the next time they do the update. The next thing they added is allow world creators to change physics bounds threshold. Let's have a read of this. So physics simulations in VR chat are limited in realism because creators can't modify most of the variables in physics settings. For example, I'm working on a mini golf map, very cool, and my golf ball sticks to the walls at low speeds rather than bouncing off realistically. I've got it at the editor simulation to look nearly 1-1, near the 1-to-1, with real golf balls by changing the bounce threshold in the physics manager to 0. However, these changes do not meant carry over while I'm testing the map in VRChat. I can maybe understand restricting the solver iterations to prevent lag, but even then, it's to be up to creators to optimize their worlds if the physics settings can be made changeable, and that would be very appreciated. As you can see here, we have physics manager, and it is based on the bouncing of the ball. The gravity is set to 0, y is set to minus 9.81, and z is set to 0. The bounce threshold, as mentioned, was 0. The sleep threshold in the default contract offset is 0.001 or 1/1000. The default solver iteration is 6, and the default solver velocity is 1. And he put quick hit Twitter, the queries hit triggers, and the PCM ticked on. So he's trying to make a mini golf map where the ball would bounce off the wall and rather than stick to the wall as mentioned here. So that's coming up. The next thing that is coming up is an SDK update from in Unity for 2022.33.3.22 F1. The World VRChat Worlds and Avatars SDK, we use it Unity 2022.3.6 F1. VRChat has been upgraded to Unity 2022.3.22 F1. Unity will be coming more updates to the SDK basically. The next one after that is going to be exposing additional text mesh pro options in Udon. So for those of you who use the text Mex Pro, this is for you. We're working on various improvements on VRChat's implementation of Text Mesh Pro. This will complete a variety of other candidate requests. We're adding new wrapper components to the VRChat to World SDK, including the following: Text Mesh Pro GUI, Graphic User Interface, Text Mesh Pro TMP, drop down and TMP input field. For security reasons, wrappers are used to access TMP components, except for the GUI, which do not require a wrapper before. So it's still in progress for this one. So if you know about text, that is for text and all that cool stuff. The next one to come over would be support the new AI and navigation to Unity 2022. Let's have a read of this. Korotori says the following: with the recent SDK update to Unity 2022, the navigation feature that was previously built into Unity has been depreciated. It is now introduced through an official package. Settings like navigation static and off-mesh link generation have been non-selectable by default due to the change from static settings. This has made setting up NavMesh in Unity 2022 environment more challenging. I would like VRChat to support the new method of navigation setup, which is the NavMesh surface. So for those of you who do not know, NavMeshes are required for like AI. And an example of that is actually the VRChat world for the desert PvP. If you guys did not know, I'm actually making I made the desert PvP world, and because there is no AI technically speaking. However, if you are making a game where are you making a world with NPCs, which I do plan to try out in the future, that nav mesh needs to be in there. Otherwise, your NPC thing will not work properly. In fact, I had to test this out off non VR related because I'm working on a FPS game, like a legit FPS game, not VR chat. It's going to be an actual downloadable experience, and I'm experiencing a little trouble doing the nav mesh. So this is what they're trying to say. But in this instance, they're talking about VR chat related. But you can still do an AI because let's just say you want to make your own VR chat world with role playing game elements, which we will talk about in a moment. Because one of the features is going to be called persistence. We'll get there in just a quick bit. So that is why NavMesh is going to be a thing here. The next thing that is going to be included is going to be the add uncompressed size limits to avatars. So let's have a read of this. As previously announced in our VRChat developer updates, VRChat will be introducing new maximum limits for uploaded avatars. For those of you on PC, the max file size is now 500 MB to 200. So they dropped it. However, memory usage has been upped to from no down actually, excuse me, from 1200 megabytes to 500 megabytes. Quest avatars, however, is the following: maximum file size is 10 megabytes, which is unchanged, but the maximum estimated memory usage is 40. The SDK will warn you if your avatar exceeds one of these limits. We came down to these numbers based on our analytics of currently uploaded avatars. If we find legitimate use cases that we have missed, we might change them. About 2% of avatars will be affected. Only 2%. If avatars have been affected by this, to make sure your maximum file size is 200 and your maximum memory usage is 500 when you're making an avatar for PC. And for Quest, it's 10 megabytes and the memory usage is 40. The next thing on the list is going to be VRC constraint, which is optimized replacement for Unity constraints. Let's take a look at this feature. VRChat is working on its own constraint component for avatars, replacing Unity constraints. Here's what they say about it. VRC constraints are Unity constraints but improved and optimized for VRChat avatars. They work on Quest and Android. Avatars can continue to fully Unity use Unity constraints, however, they are automatically converted to VRC constraints in VRChat. Unlike Unity's constraints, VRC constraint is a single component. Instead of replacing the components, its behavior is selected via drop-down. As we can see here on this image, the VRC constraint is a script that tells you the weight, the avatar transform, the constraint settings, and the freeze rotation axis, and all that good stuff if you are using the VRC constraint script. Let's move on. This is where we start talking about the good stuff. Save and load persistent road data. As we mentioned a few weeks ago, this is part of Udon 2. So we're going to take a look at this because this is for those who are making a VR chat world with role playing game elements like potions, items, inventory. Let's have a read of this. Road persistency is would increase usability since old in-world settings could load to automatically when the user revisits the same road later. As roads get more and more complex, there's no longer a quote unquote nice to have feature. It is now absolutely needed to make a more complex world playable, such as playing a long story through the devouring for players who don't want to stay 4+ hours in a single world of VR, or the case of VR chat crashes while playing it. But it is also needed for grinding mechanics in worlds where you can build something and farm resources, something we are currently working on. TLDR, too long didn't read. Either VRChat gives us a store to disk string data type without a weird character limit that saves the disk when it changes the loads again when the user joins the same world, or we'll have to implement our own open source solution reading debug log files and a third party application running on people PC to send Control V to the window handle, as other world creators have already done it. But either way, we definitely can't go on without a solution here. And a current quote unquote ask a VR user to copy and paste a string is not a good way to do it, especially since it's not a crash safe. So users lose all progress when VR chat disconnects the user randomly. But also since we don't have a copy to clipboard paste from clipboard function next to text input field for whatever reason. Something that would be extremely useful for VR users in general anyway. Ideally, an instance could also specify to only load the process progress from whoever created it. It is not possible right now to know the instance owner in Udon, but that's a mirror follow-up issue. So for those of you who are not aware, world persistence is a brand new feature or is a new feature coming to Udon 2 as part of Udon 2, and this is more of a case for those worlds who who are trying to make it like a role-playing game, like a legit role-playing game inside of VR chat. Like you have items, you have weapons, armor, something in that style. And you need persistence to do it because you want to save your progress. So basically, long story short, a way to to store progress so that you don't lose your progress when you come back to the world, assuming that there's a crash or something happened. That's why a lot of people are looking for this feature. Let's take a look at the comments because we have this as well. Let's take a look at this fact. Mark this post as in progress. Normally, we don't go over to the comment section, but we do in this case because we need to have more context. Persistence is currently undergoing closed beta testing. It's a complex system and includes some other changes to VRChat's networking system. We hope the testing goes well. Here are some examples of how persistence might be used. Saving and loading a player's progress, that's true. Tracking their inventory or currency, that's true. Placing items or structures in the world, that is true. Especially if you're placing like items in the world and all that good stuff. Remembering their preferences or settings, that's also true. So that they don't have to set the settings in the world again. They can just press button, and they can load those settings for whoever the user is. At launch, persistent data can be used in two ways. Number one, with player objects, VRChat can automatically instate this object for each player. Scripts on player objects can have persistent variables. The second one, player data, which is accessible from every script. It's a key value storage system for saving and loading variables associated with the player. If you are curious, here's some more details on how persistence is planned to work. The first one, persistent data is stored on VRChat servers and accessible from on any of your devices. So if you use the Android, the Quest, the PC, and eventually the iPhone, this is where everything can be stored. The second thing, Udon can access all data of all players in the instance, but only while they're in the world. So basically, it's a read only because it's a private thing. It's a private data field because it's only for that instance and only for players in that world, and it will only load for that for Udon. So that is that's the thing about save and load persistent data. And remember, right now they're in beta right now. It's a closed beta testing. I'm actually in the beta test, but not doing the whole. I have to see how this works because I think if we do currency, inventory, and players' progress, I could be making a RPG for you guys. That's 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 crazy, but that's how it is. A legit RPG can be coming to your VR chat headset soon. The next thing we're going to talk about is Udon 2. Udon 2 is actually the new system. So here is Udon 2. Udon 2 is VRChat's upcoming replacement for Udon 1. Udon is a feature of VRChat's World SDK. It allows users to write custom scripts with the Udon graph and Udon Sharp. So whenever I say in my tutorials when they're coming, I say Udon graph programming asset. That's this. That's Udon. And Udon Sharp is the same thing, but instead of visual box, you have code. You have actual code. I'm doing the programming asset graph thing. Udon 2 runs WebAssembly instead of Udon assembly. Programs are compiled into C Sharp script assemblies using Rosalyn and run within VRChat using the same runtime as Blazor. This means that the following: most C Sharp scripts or features are supported, such as lists, dictionaries, and actions, excuse me. Scripts and worlds uploaded with Udon 2 are generally performing better. Existing worlds will continue to work as before, and Udon graph programs are compiled into C Sharp instead of Udon assembly. So as you can see here, let's have a look at this picture. Phase 1 is where we are. So the Udon graph goes to the graph compiler, and Udon sharp goes to the sharp compiler. They converge at the Udon assembly and using Udon assembly virtual machine. In phase two, where we're going next, the Udon graph and the Udon and the sharp compiler will go to the sharp compiler, while Udon sharp goes directly to the sharp compiler, then to the Udon's assembly, and then to the Udon assembly virtual machine. The phase three is where we're headed to eventually. Udon graph will go to the graph sharp compiler, while Udon sharp goes to the sharp compiler directly. Then we have the Udon WSAM WASM virtual machine, which leads to the Udon graph virtual machine from Udon assembly to the Udon assembly virtual machine. That is where we're headed to once Udon 2 is in play. Let's read for more context. Udon 2 is in development and will enter closed beta testing soon with an open beta scheduled for later this year. So right now we're in that area. Next thing is new character controllers for worlds. So here's what we have. We're working on a new character controller for VRChat World. It works mostly like VRChat's current controller, character controller, but has a variety of improvements, including the following. Players can stand on moving platforms. Going upstairs and slopes is smoother. Players can get pushed around by the compiler. Excuse me, colliders. It's better at getting players unstuck from geometry. And Udon has greater control over the character controller. And more. This feature is still in development and subject to change. So this is more of movement. They're gonna make it easier to go upstairs and ramps. So if there's a role playing world with stairs, this is the thing that it's going to improve it. The next thing is the last three things have something to do. The next two things have something to do with the store. Permanent purchases in group stores. So if you're in the if you are in the creator economy and you upload and you apply, this is for you. Oh, we cannot see that one unfortunately, and we cannot see the other two unfortunately, but that's okay. But I do want to talk about this one. Community plugins, custom Udon graph nodes. So here's more on this. Community plugins, custom Udon graph nodes. This community is very creative no matter how many resources you put towards building cool tools. You always you will always lag behind the community's ideas. As such, I think having some type of experimental area where world builders can extend the node graph without being blacklisted during upload seems like a great way to improve and propose new features. Simple text and screenshots in the Kane don't seem adequate for me here because you cannot use tester code, nor you can illustrate properly what the benefits are. For example, if you wish to build a PA microphone system leveraging runtime modifications of the spatial audio parameters. This requires you to test with other players to get it right, and the best way to present the result would be through a demo. Now, imagine someone could build a custom node for a new node graph along the following lines of the following: audio source minimum range and maximum range with audio parameters, and you'll be able to reference player voices as audio sources here, perhaps through a trigger of sorts. And fact says the following: after Udon 2 has been launched publicly, we'll be planning to work on a feature to allow the creation of custom graph nodes. So basically, he's trying to say we're gonna make our own nodes. with different parameters with custom stuff. We don't have to rely on the basic stuff anymore. Is what is going on here. And let's take a look at when they are coming out. According to the ETA, status for the inspector is going to be coming soon. Inspector, I mean, allow world avatars for physics bounds is going to be coming soon. Everything else is in progress. For May 2024, the following features are going to be arriving. The upgrade to SDK to Unity 2022.3.22F1, the exposed additional Text Pro features, and support the new AI navigation for May 2024. For July, they are adding the new limits to avatar uploads. For the summer 2024, they're going to be doing the VRC constraint and save and load persistent data. So that's the one we're talking about for RPG games. Udon 2, new character controller, and the permanent purchases in group stores is going to be at the end of this year. For planned features, they are doing the recurring payment and community plugins. So that is the roadmap for VRChat in terms of developers and and avatar creators for this time at May 2024. Keep in mind that I may be using some of these features, including the save and load persistent data. I'll be taking advantage of that if I do plan to make a VRChat role playing, like an actual role playing game, not role play with lines and stuff. We're talking about an RPG. If you guys want to try that out. Okay, so we're gonna see what have we have. So that is today's VR chat news. One more news happens, I'm gonna bring it to you on the channel. And for all things VR chat news and stuff, stay tuned here on the Yuki Productions channel, and we'll see you guys on our next one. Enjoy.